Ethan Monroe didn't notice the golden light spilling across the skyline of Seattle. From the 33rd floor of the Summit Tower, the city unfolded in stunning clarity, ships drifting across the bay, the mountains painted in shadow, but all of it blurred into nothingness. He sat stiffly in his sleek, leather chair, the one that symbolized years of grueling work as a corporate litigator. His laptop screen glowed coldly, the images displayed on it far darker than the room around him. Two figures emerged from the black SUV parked discreetly behind the Maxwell Hotel, their faces caught by the candid lens of a private investigator. Aubrey, his wife of 10 years, wore the cobalt blue dress Ethan had gifted her for their anniversary, the fabric hugging her figure with a painful familiarity. Next to her, Logan Hart, CEO of Heartland Enterprises, towered with an arrogance that made Ethan's stomach churn. Every Thursday, every Sunday. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't even a fling. Ethan closed the lid of his laptop, the action as decisive as the plan forming in his mind. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a challenge. His phone buzzed on the desk, cutting through his spiraling thoughts. He checked the screen and saw a text from Aubrey. Working late at the gallery tonight. Don't wait up. His jaw tightened. The audacity. He turned the phone over, shutting out the lie for a moment longer. He didn't need a confrontation yet. He needed time. Time to craft something precise. Something devastating. Ethan had never been a man ruled by emotion. Logic, preparation, and calculation had built his career. But now, for the first time in years, his hands trembled as he scrolled through the investigator's report. Subject B, Logan Hart, 42, CEO of Heartland Enterprises. Divorced twice. Reputational issues due to alleged extramarital affairs, though none confirmed. High-profile real estate magnate. Known for risky personal behavior that often threatens professional interests. Logan wasn't just a man. He was a predator. Ethan knew his type well. Men who treated everything in life, from marriages to corporations, as disposable. Logan's sharp suits and easy smile masked a history of wreckage. And now Aubrey had become his latest acquisition. Ethan's lips tightened into a line as he pulled out the file he had been compiling over the past few weeks. Photos, surveillance notes, and an audio file from the private investigator's bug planted near the hotel entrance. It was all there. Evidence. Proof. He didn't just want answers anymore. He wanted consequences. Opening his drawer, Ethan pulled out a sleek, black folder. Inside was a meticulously prepared document. A blueprint for a revenge that would dismantle everything Logan and Aubrey held dear. This wasn't just about anger or even heartbreak. No, this was about ensuring that the pain they caused him would echo back tenfold. As the digital clock on his desk ticked closer to 8 p.m., Ethan leaned back, his mind already 10 steps ahead. Revenge wasn't about rushing. It was about precision, and he had plenty of time to get it right. Ethan arrived home later that night to find the house exactly as he'd expected, silent, immaculate, and cold. Aubrey had perfected the art of deception over the past few months, and her absence was part of the performance. Their queen and home was a masterpiece of modern architecture. Steel beams, glass walls, and polished hardwood floors reflecting muted golden light from overhead fixtures. It was the dream house they'd bought 7 years ago, a symbol of the life they were building together. Now it felt like a hollow shell. He dropped his briefcase by the entryway and walked to the kitchen. On the counter, a note in Aubrey's delicate handwriting read, "Dinner's in the fridge. I'll be late." The simplicity of the words infuriated him. He could imagine her carefully penning the note before rushing out to prepare their bedroom for someone else. His hand crumpled the paper into a tight ball before tossing it into the trash. The only sound in the house was the soft hum of the refrigerator. Ethan stood motionless, his thoughts swirling between fury and purpose. His plan was still in its infancy, but the pieces were beginning to fall into place. After grabbing a glass of water, he headed to his office and activated the live security feed. The cameras showed empty rooms bathed in faint moonlight, except for the master bedroom. There, Aubrey's silhouette flitted across the screen. She was lighting candles, smoothing the bed sheets, and arranging flowers. Ethan's jaw clenched. She'd always had a flair for aesthetics, but this wasn't for him. It wasn't for them. It was for Logan Hart. The following morning, Ethan sat across from Dean Morgan, his private investigator, in a quiet corner of a downtown cafe. Dean was a wiry man with a sharp eye for details and an even sharper sense of discretion. "I take it last night confirmed everything?" Dean asked, sipping his black coffee. Ethan nodded, sliding his phone across the table to show the latest video feed. "She's not even trying to hide it anymore." Dean glanced at the screen and then back at Ethan. "You've got enough evidence to file for divorce and destroy her in court. Hell, with the prenup, she'd walk away with nothing. Is that the plan?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "No, a clean break isn't enough. She's lied to me, brought him into our house, our bed. This isn't just betrayal, it's humiliation. She didn't think about the fallout, but I will." Dean raised an eyebrow. "You're not just talking about the divorce, are you?" "No." Ethan's voice was cold, measured. "This isn't just about ending the marriage. It's about ensuring neither of them walks away unscathed." Dean leaned back in his chair, clearly intrigued. "All right, what do you need from me?" "Two things," Ethan said, his tone firm. "First, keep digging into Logan. I want his business practices, his personal habits, everything. If there's a crack in his empire, I want to know about it. And the second?" Ethan's lips curved into a tight smile. "I need the right tools to make their lives uncomfortable. Let's just say I plan to leave a lasting impression." By Thursday evening, the pieces were in motion. Ethan had spent the day at work, outwardly calm and professional, while his mind churned with plans. Aubrey, predictably, had texted him. "Late again tonight. Big installation at the gallery." Ethan typed back a short reply. "Understood. Good luck with it." Her response came instantly. He could almost feel her relief through the screen. At 7:30, he parked his car a block away from their home and let himself in through the garage's side door. His footsteps were silent on the concrete as he made his way to the laundry room. There, he retrieved the bedsheets he had carefully treated the night before with pharmaceutical-grade itching powder. The man at the specialty store had warned him, "This stuff is no joke. Use it wisely." Ethan smirked as he carried the sheets to the master bedroom. Aubrey had left everything pristine. The flowers, the candles, the carefully chosen music playing softly from the speakers. It was almost romantic, except for the betrayal it represented. He replaced the sheets, smoothing them down meticulously so they looked untouched. The powder was invisible, but its effects would be unforgettable. As he finished, his phone buzzed with a message from Dean. "Subjects en route. ETA 15 minutes." Ethan moved to his office, where his laptop displayed every camera angle of the house. He poured himself a glass of bourbon and settled in to wait. At precisely 8:02, Aubrey's white Mercedes pulled into the driveway. Logan's sleek black Audi followed moments later. Ethan leaned back in his chair, a cold smile playing on his lips as he watched the pair enter the house. Aubrey was laughing, her voice carrying faintly through the audio feed. "You look stunning tonight," Logan said, his voice oozing confidence. "And we have the whole house to ourselves," Aubrey replied, her tone light and flirtatious. "Ethan's working late again. He's been so distracted lately." Ethan swirled his bourbon, the ice clinking softly against the glass. His gaze never left the screen. "Let the games begin." The master bedroom camera captured everything. Ethan sat at his desk, his hand steady as he swirled the last of his bourbon, watching Aubrey and Logan settle onto the freshly made bed. "You outdid yourself tonight," Logan said, his voice smooth as he leaned closer to Aubrey. Her laughter, once Ethan's favorite sound in the world, now grated against his nerves. She brushed a hand along Logan's chest, murmuring something about needing to make the most of their time together. Ethan's lips tightened. The first sign of discomfort was subtle. Aubrey shifted slightly, her hand brushing against her leg as if dismissing a minor itch. Logan, too, seemed distracted for a moment, scratching his arm absently. But within minutes, the situation escalated. Aubrey's light scratching turned frantic, her nails raking against her bare arms. Logan was no better, clawing at his chest with growing desperation. What the hell is this?" Logan's voice was strained, his calm demeanor evaporating. "I don't know," Aubrey cried, her voice rising. She scrambled off the bed, rubbing her hands against her thighs as if trying to remove an invisible irritant. "It's burning." Logan leapt to his feet, pulling at his shirt. "Did you change the detergent or something?" "No, I don't know." Aubrey's panic was palpable as she scratched at her arms, red marks appearing on her pale skin. Ethan allowed himself a small, cold smile. Timing was everything. He stood, straightened his tie, and walked calmly down the hallway. The sound of their frantic movements grew louder with every step. When he reached the bedroom door, he pushed it open without hesitation. "Having a good time?" His voice cut through the chaos, sharp and cold. Aubrey froze mid-scratch, her eyes wide with shock. Logan, still frantically scratching his chest, turned to face Ethan, his expression a mix of confusion and rage. "Ethan," Aubrey stammered, her voice trembling. I can explain." Ethan raised an eyebrow, leaning casually against the doorframe. "Oh, please. I'd love to hear it." "This isn't what it looks like," Logan managed to choke out, though his furious scratching undermined his attempt at composure. Ethan's laugh was low and humorless. "Really? Because it looks like my wife brought her lover into my home, into my bed, and now you're both getting exactly what you deserve." Aubrey took a shaky step toward him. "Ethan, please, Save it." His voice was ice. "I'm not here for excuses or apologies. I've heard enough lies to last a lifetime." He tossed a manila envelope onto the bed. The photos, surveillance logs, and receipts spilled out, damning in their meticulous detail. Aubrey's hand flew to her mouth as she stared at the evidence. Logan's face darkened as he recognized the weight of what had just been laid before them. "You've been spying on us?" Logan demanded, his voice rising. Ethan's smile was razor-sharp. "Yes, and thank you for making it so easy. You're not exactly subtle." This is insane," Logan sputtered, clawing at his neck as the itching grew unbearable. "What did you do to us?" "Oh, nothing permanent," Ethan said, his tone almost casual. "Just a little pharmaceutical-grade itching powder. Consider it a metaphor for what betrayal feels like. Constant, unbearable, and entirely your fault." The room fell in a tense silence, broken only by Aubrey's choked sobs. "Ethan, please," she begged, her voice cracking. "I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking straight. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything?" Ethan repeated, his voice dangerously low. 10 years of marriage, and you throw it all away for nothing? For him. He gestured toward Logan with a disdainful nod. Logan stepped forward, his usual arrogance faltering under Ethan's steely gaze. "Look, Monroe, we can handle this like adults. There's no need to make this messy." Ethan's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Messy? You're standing in my home, with my wife, after months of lies and deceit. I think we're long past worrying about messy." He turned to Aubrey, his expression hard. "Do you have any idea what you've done? What you've destroyed?" Tears streamed down her face as she struggled to find words. I didn't mean for this to happen. I love you, Ethan. I do." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't cheat. Love doesn't bring another man into our bed." He reached into his pocket and pulled out another envelope, this one containing divorce papers. "You've made your choice, Aubrey. Now you'll live with the consequences." He tossed the envelope onto the bed, where it landed next to the damning evidence of her affair. What about us?" Aubrey whispered, her voice barely audible. "There is no us," Ethan said coldly. "Not anymore." Logan, still scratching furiously, tried to muster some bravado. "You think you've won, Monroe? You have no idea who you're dealing with." Ethan stepped closer, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. "Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. And trust me, Logan, this is only the beginning. By the time I'm done, your reputation, your career, and your life will be in ruins." Logan's bravado faltered, and for the first time, genuine fear flickered in his eyes. "Get out of my house," Ethan said, his voice sharp and commanding. "Both of you. Now." The echoes of their hurried steps rang hollow in the house as Aubrey and Logan scrambled to leave. Logan clutched his shirt in one hand, his face a mottled mix of red and pale as the itching reduced him to a miserable shadow of his usual polished self. Aubrey barely managed to throw on a coat over her disheveled dress, her sobs stifled into silence by Ethan's steely gaze. He didn't watch them leave. Instead, Ethan turned away, his focus on tidying the scene in the master bedroom. He collected the damning envelopes, stacked them neatly, and slid them into his desk drawer. The faint smell of extinguished candles lingered in the air, cloying and suffocating. His phone buzzed on the desk. Dean's message was short and efficient. Phase 1 complete. Ready to move forward? Ethan typed back a single word, yes. 2 days later, Ethan stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, the city stretching out below him like a chessboard. He stared at the sprawling metropolis as his mind calculated his next moves. Dean had uncovered more than enough to ensure Logan Hart's fall from grace. Financial improprieties, hidden settlements from disgruntled employees, and evidence of offshore accounts tied to dubious transactions. Logan's empire was built on a foundation as fragile as sand, and Ethan was prepared to wash it away. The first strike came that afternoon. At precisely 3 p.m., Logan's name splashed across local news websites. Real estate tycoon Logan Hart faces SEC investigation into fraudulent business practices. Ethan smirked as he watched the news coverage unfold. Dean had timed the release perfectly, feeding the information to the most influential financial reporters in the city. Within hours, Logan's carefully curated public image began to crumble. His phone rang. It was Dean. "Logan's in full damage control mode," Dean said. "Lawyers, PR teams, the works. But with what we've handed over to the SEC, it's only a matter of time." "And Aubrey?" Ethan asked, his voice even. "She's been trying to contact you. Left 3 voicemails yesterday. She also showed up at the gallery board meeting this morning." Ethan frowned. "And she was removed as gallery director. Unanimous decision. They've already scrubbed her name from the website. The satisfaction should have been sweet, but it was muted." Ethan's grip on the phone tightened. "Good. Keep me updated." By the end of the week, the fallout had reached every corner of their lives. Logan's company, Heartland Enterprises, saw its stock plummet by 40%. Investors were fleeing, and whispers of criminal charges grew louder as more evidence surfaced. Logan hadn't taken it quietly. He made one last desperate attempt to salvage his position, calling Ethan late at night. "What do you want, Monroe?" Logan's voice, usually smooth and commanding, now cracked under the weight of his predicament. Ethan didn't bother with pleasantries. "I want you to feel what it's like to lose everything you've worked for. Every connection, every ounce of respect, every shred of dignity." "Is this about Aubrey? You think ruining me fixes anything?" "It's not about fixing," Ethan replied coldly. "It's about consequences. Actions have them, Logan. I'm just ensuring you finally learn that lesson." Logan cursed, his fury spilling into the phone. "You think you're better than me? That you're some kind of righteous avenger?" "No, I think I'm someone who doesn't let betrayal go unanswered." Ethan ended the call, letting the silence speak louder than anything else. Meanwhile, Aubrey's life was unraveling at an equally rapid pace. The gallery, her pride and joy, had slipped through her fingers. Board members avoided her calls, and patrons she once charmed turned cold. Whispers followed her at every social event she dared to attend, the betrayal now public knowledge. On a dreary Thursday afternoon, she showed up at Ethan's office, her eyes rimmed red, clutching an envelope. "Ethan," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. He didn't invite her to sit. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "You're lucky I'm not busy." "What do you want, Aubrey?" She placed the envelope on his desk. "The signed divorce papers." I didn't contest the terms." Ethan slid the envelope closer, his eyes scanning her face. "Smart move." Her hands trembled as she clasped them in front of her. "Why are you doing this?" "Destroying me, Logan? Everything?" "You destroyed us the moment you decided to bring him into our life," Ethan said, his voice cold. "You took what we built and threw it away like it meant nothing." Tears welled in her eyes. "I made a mistake." "No, Aubrey. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or burning dinner. What you did was deliberate. You made choices." Over and over again, the weight of his words hung in the air, and for a moment, she seemed to crumble beneath them. "Is there no chance for us to fix this?" Ethan leaned forward, his voice low but firm. There was, but you chose to end it. You and Logan made sure of that. Her sobs filled the office as she turned and fled, leaving Ethan alone with the envelope. He stared at it for a long moment before tucking it away in his drawer. Logan Hart sat in the sleek, modern office of his once thriving company, his hands trembling as he scrolled through the latest news articles on his tablet. The headlines were devastating. Heartland Enterprises CEO faces SEC and FBI scrutiny. Offshore accounts and fraudulent deals uncovered. Real estate tycoon accused of misconduct by former employees. The reports had sent his company into a freefall. Investors withdrew faster than Logan could make calls. His board of directors had voted unanimously to remove him as CEO, and now he was staring down federal charges that could ruin him permanently. Mr. Hart, the FBI is here, his assistant said quietly, her voice devoid of sympathy. Logan's chest tightened. He wasn't a man used to losing, but today marked the end of everything he had built. Aubrey Monroe stood outside the doors of the gallery she had once curated with pride. A sign hung on the polished glass, closed for renovation, reopening under new management. She had been stripped of everything: the gallery, her social standing, her marriage. The whispers of betrayal and scandal followed her wherever she went, and the friends she once relied on had distanced themselves. Her phone buzzed in her hand, the notification flashing brightly. Ethan Monroe finalizes divorce, takes over gallery operations. The article's accompanying photos showed Ethan at a gallery event, poised and confident, surrounded by influential collectors. The very life she had planned to use as her springboard into a new chapter with Logan was now thriving without her. Tears stung her eyes as she turned and walked away. Ethan adjusted his cufflinks as he stood in the heart of the gallery, now fully restored under his leadership. The space buzzed with life, a gathering of Seattle's most prominent art enthusiasts. Rachel, the gallery's new director, approached with a glass of champagne. The crowd is loving the new exhibits. The donors are already talking about expanding our outreach. Good, Ethan replied with a small nod. Make sure the press gets the story right. This gallery represents integrity and fresh starts. As Rachel walked away, Ethan allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The betrayal he had endured hadn't broken him. It had forged him into someone sharper, stronger. Across town, Logan sat in the small, dim apartment he had rented after his accounts were frozen and his property seized. His once lavish lifestyle was a distant memory. The echoes of his choices reverberated daily, from the strained voices of his lawyers to the judgmental eyes of strangers. Aubrey visited once, but their conversation had been short and bitter. You said we'd have a new life, she accused, her voice trembling. You said we'd be happy. Logan's laugh was harsh, devoid of warmth. I didn't plan for a man like Ethan. Weeks later, Ethan stood in his home office, sipping a glass of wine as he reviewed the latest updates from Dean. Logan was facing multiple indictments for fraud, tax evasion, and embezzlement. Aubrey had moved to a smaller city to escape the public humiliation. Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring out at the Seattle skyline. He didn't feel joy, but he felt peace. The people who had shattered his life had faced the consequences of their actions. His phone buzzed with a message from Rachel. Tonight was a success. The gallery's future is bright. Thanks for trusting me. Ethan smiled faintly. 6 months later, Ethan found himself on the shores of the Amalfi Coast, the crisp sea breeze carrying the scent of salt and citrus. He had stepped away from the corporate world to focus on building something new, something for himself. As he walked along the beach, he thought of Aubrey and Logan. Their choices had defined their fates, but his choices had defined his future. He had rebuilt his life, piece by piece, stronger than before. For the first time in years, Ethan felt free. The lessons of betrayal, revenge, and justice had been hard, but they had been necessary. Some wounds didn't heal entirely, but they shaped a person in ways nothing else could. Ethan looked out at the horizon, where the sun dipped into the sea, casting everything in a golden glow. The world was still his to conquer, but this time, he would do it on his terms. And somewhere, far away, Aubrey and Logan were left with nothing but memories of the man they underestimated and the price they paid for it.